Hi, everyone. Welcome aboard. This is Amar Shet at Sales for Life, and welcome to another edition of the Social Success Factor. Today, I'm really excited. I have a guest with me all the way from the other side of the pond in good old Netherlands, and I have Jorge Ober with me. Jorge, how are you today?
Good, very good. And you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for joining us, and really happy that you're able to share your story with us. So, folks, Jorge is a seasoned sales professional. He has been selling for quite some time, and I wanted to have him on the show to share his story about social media and how it's made an impact on him. So, Jorge, thanks again for being here. Let's jump right in. Tell the
Sure.
audience a little bit about yourself and your background in sales.
Yeah, sure. First of all, thanks for having me on the show. Very excited. Well, basically, my selling career, if you can put it that way, started about 6 7 years ago. Started in the energy business, so basically selling energy and gas to large companies. Basically, one of the hardest products to sell, which I have been involved in, because yeah, electricity is electricity and gas is gas. There are no different flavors apart from green gas, but so that made me a seasoned vet in respect to selling a commodity. And within commodity selling, a lot has changed in the past 7 years. I've been selling printers, printing appliances, document management solutions, IT security software, and more recently IT as a whole. So basically everything involved in IT. And I kept coming back to the same thing. People aren't involved as they used to be anymore. What I mean by that is basically people are doing their own buying journey, as you and Jamie have put it quite good. That buying journey makes it difficult for a salesperson to be involved in the first 60 70% of that journey. And I kept getting more and more requests of just give me a quote. And from there, prices were dropped. We had to
Yeah.
compete with all of the other parties. And at the end, the customer won, which was great, of course. But my company didn't win, and we were forced to lower our prices continuously. So that made
Yeah.
me think, how can we handle this challenge?
So basically, you got into social for the two things I'm hearing from you is number one, you got in because it's a way to differentiate yourself. It's a noisy marketplace. It's becoming increasingly challenging to differentiate yourself versus ABCD competitor. And you
Yeah.
found social media a great avenue to start that process. And I think, if I hear correctly, it's because you've seen yourself in your own selling life, Jorge, that buyers are now going online, starting there in some degree, in some degree, let's just say that. And you want to
Mhm.
be able to tap into that because before it turns into a buying journey, you want to be able to get your 2 cents in, as we say here, and impress them
Yeah.
and convey your experience, right?
Yeah, that's exactly what I meant. More recently, this has become a greater part in my life because at the moment I'm making the transition to a working life to a own business
Right.
starting. And by doing the both of them together, I was basically forced to use social selling to get my message across for my own company. Because during the working hours, I was, of course, not allowed to do any prospecting whatsoever. So I had to think it through, and I had to think smart. So started engaging a lot on social, scheduling my posts, and basically being there on the marketplace at the right times, but from the evening before. So social has really put me in the position to get my brand name across, to get my message across, without actually being there at that moment. And
That's a great point, Jorge. That's a really, really good point. Another question for you is share with the audience a success story that you've had, an example where social has helped you perhaps open a door, win a deal, um, make a process or make a deal that you were working on unstuck effectively, maybe. So
yeah, sure.
share some insights on that, please.
Yeah, sure. I'll share the story with one of my largest customers at the moment, which is an upclassed hotel. That hotel has 3 restaurants, and I've been following the hotel and the restaurants on Twitter since I started engaging with them. And a couple of months back, I saw a post that their restaurants had actually won Michelin stars, all of them. So a buddy of mine is in the hotel industry and once told me that F&B, so food and beverage, is basically the bread and butter for every hotel. It's not the rooms, it's not the Wi-Fi, it's not the other stuff, it's the F&B. If you can't get your F&B rolling and occupied, you're basically making an even pay. So you're not making a profit. So I basically combined those two and talked to them about a wireless opportunity which they were having anyway. So from that social point, I basically added to them, why not use that wireless setup to get people to your restaurants? So basically they walk in, they connect to your Wi-Fi, and bing, they get a message directly on their phone. Happy hours is from then to then, and here's your complimentary beverage. Would you like to make a reservation in one of our 3 hotel restaurants, which have been accredited with Michelin stars? And from there on, I noticed that the project started to change, and we were talking less and less about the wireless connectivity options, and more about how can we leverage that wireless to make money for the hotel. So basically giving them a new business model.
Jorge, by listening, using
Mm-hmm.
a social tool, you were able to find something that they were talking about themselves. So it's not a
Yes.
cold call or anything like that. There's no cold anymore. You were able to lead with insights and add value and convey your experience, which is so smart on your behalf. How did that opportunity go, or is it still in the process?
Well, at the moment, we're in the process of introducing 3 different parties which can supply the wireless setups for them. So basically vendors. But we're not seen as one of the many anymore. We are the party which gets them into contact with the main vendors. We are basically making their landscape and basically giving them a broad overview of the palette of different choices and how they can flexibly interact with that and make their hotel more profitable.
That's brilliant. You're basically having a business conversation, which is the goal of every single salesperson in the world.
Yeah,
Is
no.
talk less about price and talk more about value and insights. So, congratulations. That's a great opportunity. One
Yeah,
more
thanks.
question. Yeah, one more question for you here is what, and maybe you have an answer to this, maybe you don't, but I'm going to ask anyway. What
Mhm.
percentage of your pipeline presently comes from social media or social selling?
Well, within my career at the IT firm, I would say about 40 to 50% because I work with a fixed set of customers.
Right.
But within starting my own business, it's 100%
Wow.
because there is no other option for me. It starts with social, and from there on, I have a talking subject to basically make that first introduction call and be seen as a knowledge sharer instead of just the next guy offering sales training.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is a really good point. So 40 to 50% of your pipeline coming from social, um,
That's right.
but that's not the big thing for me. The big thing that you just said is you had named accounts. So a lot of people, a lot of salespeople think, well, social selling only applies to those that have an open territory. It doesn't apply to me because I have a handful or a small number of accounts, and therefore it's not opportune for me. And you're basically just proving it wrong, saying no, you can actually start and make major headway and impact with social, which is fantastic. Jorge, I have one question. I promise this is the last question for you.
No
Um,
problem.
what words of motivation and advice would you give salespeople and sales leaders today who are looking to perhaps investigate or evaluate social media in their sales process?
Well, I think for sales personnel like me, so sales professionals, I think the best thing to do is basically get engaged with people like you, like Jamie, like King Krog, and those people basically making the headway in the social spectrum. From there on, I basically learned everything I needed to know to roll out my own social strategy. And for sales leaders like sales managers and sales effectiveness managers, I would say stop seeing social as a way of getting by with the news. It's engaging with your customers. It's basically getting that information which they are perhaps holding back on the telephone call, but are proud to mention on social media. So it is in their head at that moment, and from there on you can build the relationship even further.
That's some great advice. I've asked hundreds of people this question, Jorge, and that is probably one of the best answers that I've heard. So thanks for
Thanks.
that. I really appreciate your time. Jorge, let's keep the dialogue flowing. I'd love to have you back on the show at some point in the future and catch up and see what you're up to and see what amazing things that you're achieving with social. So thanks again. I want to wish you well, and we'll talk soon.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Bye bye.